take it away.
Go Vikings, let's win this game. Go Vikings, honor your name. Go get that first down, then get a touchdown. Rock 'em, sock 'em, fight, 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 fight. Go Vikings, run up the score. You'll hear us yell for more. Beat Vikings, Vikings, Vikings. Go Vikings, let's go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Viking Spin. I'm your host, Jason, and we are doing our preview podcast here for the Week 4 matchup between the Vikings and the Lions. So coming into this game, both teams have a record of 2 wins and 1 loss. So both 2-1. The Vikings come into this game with the number 2 overall offense in the league, which is impressive because we've only had our starting quarterback Sam Bradford for 1 game. Case Keenum played last week and lit up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense like a tree. Yes, they were injury riddled, so that's one thing to take into account. But Keenum also did have past success against the Buccaneers when he was with the Rams last year. Which brings me to my next point, which is a positive here for the Vikings, is that Case Keenum also, when he was with the Rams last season, started against the Lions and threw for 321 yards, 3 touchdown passes, and ran for another touchdown pass. Had 1 interception, but his Rams put up 28 points. Now they lost the game 31-28, but I think it's safe to say if he plays like that for the Vikings, of course, with our defense, we should be able to hold Detroit under 28 points. Considering we're going to have the home field advantage tomorrow, so I'm optimistic about that. Lots being made of which Case Keenum shows up. And I'm going to refer to him as I have been all week as just in case Keenum, because that's the life of a backup quarterback. You got to be ready just in case, and he was certainly ready last week against Tampa Bay. The week before against the Steelers, he was not as effective, but then again, he didn't really know he was starting until hours before that game, whereas last week he knew a few days in advance that he would be starting. And I think the Vikings had more opportunity to tailor their game plan to the things that he does well. So some other factors count into this game. The injury reports are out. Obviously, Sam Bradford out for the Vikings. The only other person that was on the final injury report after Friday's practice was backup tackle Rashad Hill, who is questionable. For Detroit, they had a couple of backups that have been ruled out. Zach Kieran, who is backing up on the interior offensive line, former Viking, is out, as well as their backup running back Washington. But some other significant names that are on the injury report for them. Probably now the biggest one here, because he was a non-participant in the last 2 practices, was the rookie wide receiver sensation, Galladay. So with Kenny Galladay likely not going to play in this game, listed as questionable, but did not practice for the last 2 practices here, it looks like, with a hamstring injury. So that's a big break for the Vikings secondary to now have to deal with him. Some other players that they have on their injury report, a couple of guys that were full participants on it, they're listed as questionable, but I would say that they're going to play, is their center, Travis Swanson, and their safety, Tavon Wilson. They were both full participants today in practice, so I would see them as playing. The question marks, though, come in this next group. Detroit has 3 players that were limited the last couple of days and are listed as questionable. Their top player on defense, certainly on the defensive line, Ziggy was listed as questionable with a knee injury, limited, like I said, the past couple of days. Also, backup safety Don Terry, and starting rookie linebacker Gerard Davis. He's had neck and concussion issues all week. He's been limited all week, so I don't know if he's going to pass the protocol. We'll have to see with him, but he's definitely a big part of their defense, an impact player for them at linebacker. So, and they really did miss his play last week. So, when he was knocked out of the game. So that would be significant. Some other players that look like they might be a little bit banged up. Safety Grover Quinn, Anthony Zettel at defensive end, and T.J. Lang. T.J. Lang has a fibula injury, did not participate Wednesday, then fully participated Thursday, and then I don't know if he got like a Veterans Day off today, but he did not participate in practice today. So those guys might be a little bit banged up, Zettel and Quinn with the knee, so maybe they won't be as effective as they normally would be. Now that leads me to the matchups that we have going on. The Vikings offense against the Detroit defense. So we know Case Keenum is the quarterback. We know what he is able to do. He's had past success against Detroit, which bodes well. And I think the Vikings have shown that they can protect him and establish the run, that he'll be fine. So I see the Vikings with Stephon Diggs will probably be matched up. My guess is their top corner, Darius Slay. But outside of Darius Slay, the Lions don't really have anybody that is really great, at cornerback. So I'm not sure that they're going to be able to handle Adam Thielen, especially when Adam Thielen goes into the slot. I don't think Nevin Lawson or Tease Tabor, DJ Hayden, Quandre Diggs, Jamal Agnew. These are their other cornerbacks besides Slay. I don't see anybody there that can hang with Thielen. And then also at linebacker, obviously Thielen is a mismatch for pretty much any NFL linebacker. So I like the Vikings' chances there. And Slay is a good cornerback. He's a playmaker. If you're not careful around him, but he's not on the level of Xavier Rhodes, so I don't expect him to shut down Stephon Diggs, but Thielen will definitely have an easier matchup, I'm sure. The Vikings will probably mix in Jarius Wright and Laquan Treadwell as well. I really like the matchup, though, for Kyle Rudolph, and I think that this is going to be a really good game for Kyle Rudolph because their linebackers on the outside, Worlow and Whitehead, don't match up well against Rudolph. They're not good in coverage, and the rookie Gerard Davis is a little banged up. So I like Rudolph's chances to shine in this game. Up front, Detroit does have Haloti Ngata. He's stout, a run defender. Ashawn Robinson and Anthony Zettel. I think at this point they're not really major impact players. So I don't think that they'll be able to shut down the running game. So I think Dalvin Cook will have success here, and the Vikings will be able to move the ball pretty well against Detroit, and I think that's key. Establishing the running game will be key because you want to have Case Keenum in favorable situations. And I think the Vikings had him in a lot of favorable situations last week where we're ahead of the chains. You know, it's 2nd and 5, or 2nd and 2, where he's able to use play action and not be in difficult third down and longs. So I think getting into a rhythm early will be the key in this game, as it was last week, which allowed the Vikings to get comfortable and get into a rhythm when they started fast against Tampa Bay. And once you do that, then the key for the Vikings defense against Detroit's offense, I think it really comes down to stopping the run first. If the Vikings can get an early lead and force Detroit to be one-dimensional, that's when the Vikings defense is at its best. They can pin their ears back and get after him in the pass rush, getting after Stafford. The Vikings will have to be smart in the way they rush Stafford. He does have mobility and escapability to get to make plays with his legs for on third downs. He'll pick up some first downs if you're not careful. But the Detroit running game is not really a dominant running game, and their offensive line, they've got some issues there. Their left tackle, Taylor Decker, is not going to be back until mid-season, so they've got Greg Robinson, who is a subpar player, at their left tackle spot. I think he's going to have a really rough day with Everson Griffin. I'm sure the Vikings will throw Hunter at him as well, and that will cause problems there. Graham Glasgow is another guy that was a backup forced into action on the left side, so that left side is looking vulnerable there. Travis Swanson is a decent player at center. T.J. Lang is a quality right guard, and then Rick Wagner is pretty good over right tackle. But the left side of their line is very vulnerable, and that might limit them a little bit in what they can do. They might want to keep a back in or keep a tight end in. Their tight ends, they had Eric Ebron, but he's more of a receiving tight end. So that may take him out of the game a little bit. Maybe they use Feld or Michael Roberts a little bit more. Or if Ebron is in the game, he might be chipping more than going out in the routes. And of course, Theo Riddick, he catches a lot of passes out of the backfield for Detroit. But if he has to chip more, that's one less guy going out in a pass pattern. And then Detroit does have a good receiving core even without Galladay. If he indeed doesn't play, they still have Golden Tate and Marvin Jones. T.J. Jones is another young receiver that they have that's up and coming. But Golden Tate is their main guy. That's who Stafford likes to go to. I imagine in the two wide receiver sets, of course, Xavier Rhodes will probably be on him. When Detroit goes into sub-packages with 3 or 4 receivers, Tate usually moves into the slot. I suspect the Vikings will probably do the rotation of Tremaine Brock, Terrence Newman, and Mackenzie Alexander on him, which would leave Trey Waynes on Marvin Jones for the majority of the afternoon on the other side. So these are matchups that that could go well for the Vikings. I think it's really big that Galladay is not in there, because if he was, he's their big deep threat, and he's a big, tall receiver, and I think they would probably try to go to him deep quite a bit. That's going to be an element that will be lacking a little bit. And I think the Vikings can maybe sit on some of those shorter routes. Maybe it'll provide an opportunity to get Stafford to throw an interception. I think that would be huge. I think whoever wins the turnover battle in this game will win the game. I think it's going to be close, for sure. I think it'll be closer than last week. I think Detroit is a better football team than Tampa Bay, at least right now. I'd say the keys to a Vikings victory are starting fast, establishing the run, and keeping Case Keenum in manageable down and distance. Defensively, stop the run first, make Stafford one-dimensional, and then the Vikings should be able to beat their left side of the line there. If there's going to be doubles, it's going to free somebody up. So Tom Johnson could get freed up inside. Linval Joseph could collapse the pocket. Brian Robinson could get in there. I suspect they're going to put a lot of attention on Everson Griffin, but the Vikings have so many pass rushers to worry about that I think they'll be able to get pressure on Stafford. The Vikings have sacked Matthew Stafford in his career more than any team in the league, so I don't expect that to change. I think the Vikings will have the home field advantage here. I'm pretty confident that the Vikings can win this game. They just have to avoid, just avoid bad situations. Don't put Case Keenum in a tough spot. For Detroit, they have to probably, their focus is going to be on Dalvin Cook. So that might open up some opportunities for Diggs and Thielen on the outside. I think they're going to take their chances with making Keenum beat them. But we'll see. He rose up to the challenge last week. Let's see if he can do it this week. And we'll see how it goes from there. And I thank you guys for tuning in here to another edition of Viking Spin, and we'll see you next time. So long.